Yes, yes, yes. What's up, everyone? Welcome into the Athletic Fantasy Football Podcast. Thursday, November 11th, Week 10, getting underway tonight with the Ravens and the Dolphins getting together on Thursday Night Football. Michael Beller here with you. We're going to talk through all of our Week 10 rankings, all the Week 10 games as we get ready to start things off tonight. I, of course, am joined by Brandon Funston, the Funstonian. What's up, my man? How you doing?
Doing good, man. Happy to be here. Happy to be halfway, at least over the halfway line of this season.
Yes.
Ready to dive into the double digits.
We are into the double digits in a big way. Also with us, of course, is Jake Seeley. And Jake, a little bit of a bonus for our friends watching on YouTube. Is that a black and white cookie T-shirt I see you wearing right now?
Yeah, for Seinfeld. Yeah,
that's exactly right.
It says "Look to the cookie."
Look to the cookie. Yes. Not the babka with the hair. Right?
No.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the black
babka.
and white cookie. Black and white cookie didn't work too well either. Honestly.
No.
I am on a non-puking streak.
That's a great episode. Should we just talk about Seinfeld for 45 minutes and forget about fantasy football?
I'm down.
I mean, now that it's on, sure, yeah.
I know that's not what everyone out there wants. We're going to talk through Week 10 rankings, Week 10 games, all that good stuff as we, as I said, get ready and start setting our lineups. So let's just talk through all the games, you guys. We'll hit on some specific questions. We'll hit on some non-specific stuff. We've got these ordered in what I think is something like most interesting to least interesting with some things mixed in. Chargers and Vikings is a game that jumps out at me as I think what could be a really fun one. So we'll start there. Chargers 3-point favorites on BetMGM. We got an over-under of 52.5, and that's going to typify the schedule. A lot of high totals this week. And I want to ask you guys, I am going to ask you one specific question off the top. 3-point spread, 52.5 point total. Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, they are what they are. But both you guys have Kirk Cousins outside that QB1 class. I know it's got something to do, Jake, with just the names that are ahead of him. But should there be a little bit more love for Kirk Cousins?
No, we do this game every single year. People always ask the same thing, like, well, how do you have Kirk Cousins as a QB 16 and yet you have two wide receivers inside the top 20? And then the same thing with, Derek Carr past years before when he had go all the way back to Crabtree and Cooper, or go back to other situations with any quarterback that's in this range. The problem is they don't run, and it all has to be through their arm. And on the third point of it is, even when you factor those two things in, and part of the reason why these quarterbacks are in this range, and it has to be all in their arm, is that it's a funneled offense. So, just because even if you include two of them, you would say if Justin Jefferson and, Adam Thielen both put up 110 yards and a touchdown, they'd both be top 5 wide receivers for the week. And people would be like, this is amazing. That's still only 220 yards and 2 touchdowns for Kirk Cousins. Like, how much is he doing elsewhere? What is he dumping off to Dalvin Cook? Another 20, 30 yards? What's going to Conklin? Another 20, 30 yards? Like, it still takes a bit for him to even get to 300 because it's all just those two guys and then a smattering of the other guys. So that's really why. It's not like, it is a waterfall effect of the fact that, like, if I projected Kirk Cousins for 300 yards, you can't add up all the receivers and get 350. But at the same time, this is why.
That's right. So it's sort of like he needs 300 yards or 3 touchdowns because he's not going to do anything else elsewhere.
Right.
Yeah. Brandon, on the other side of this game, Mike Williams obviously been struggling a little bit recently. What do you need to see from him? What do you need to see from him to feel like he is, maybe not quite the top 5 receiver he was early in the season, but also not the guy he's been the last couple of weeks?
Volume. Targets have been 5, 5, and 5 the last 3 weeks. We just need volume. Like early in the year, he was getting double-digit targets, 9, 12, 14, and the last 3 weeks, that volume's been going to Keenan Allen, and he hasn't been getting it. So I don't care. I mean, if someone who has Mike Williams, I would be encouraged if he got 9 targets, 10 targets. Maybe if he didn't have a huge game, I'd be okay with it. I would feel like, okay, at least that's a step in the right direction. Obviously, I'd like to have some production go with that volume, but
of course
the volume needs to be there. We always say volume is king. We preach volume all the time, and Mike Williams isn't getting it right now.
Jake, this game going to live up to the billing? We love close games with high totals. Is this game going to do that for us?
I mean, I hope so. Also for like DFS purposes, hope so. But we say that all the time. But on paper, there's no reason. The biggest thing is, too, the Vikings secondary has legitimately nobody that can stop Mike Williams and Keenan Allen. Even Mike Williams. This should be a week where Mike Williams bounces back in a big way.
It feels like the sort of week where all the guys, I mean, we have so many guys too who, like, you don't even think twice about starting in this game. Herbert, Eckler, Keenan, Mike Williams, Justin Jefferson, Dalvin Cook, Adam Thielen. I mean, those are default. They're out of your mind because they're just automatically in your lineup. And this could be, I think, a good game. We love seeing 50-plus point totals with field goal or fewer spreads. That is exactly what we've got in Chargers and Vikings. So hopefully that one lives up to the billing for us in the fantasy world. Packers and Seahawks. This is a matchup that we seem to see every single year because these teams are winning their division a bunch. And then, of course, with the NFC crossover, every couple of years, we're going to see it anyways, no matter what. Obviously, for fantasy purposes, we hope Aaron Rodgers is back. We're not going to know until Saturday gets here if Aaron Rodgers is going to be able to play in this game. We also weren't quite sure on Chris Carson. Funston, you waiting on Chris Carson in this one? It does sound like things are leaning toward him playing rather than not.
Yeah, I would. I mean, I have in the couple of leagues that I have Chris Carson, I also have Alex Collins. So, like, I don't have a problem waiting and making that switch. You know, if you don't, I mean, this is a common problem we have every week. There's 6 late games. Hopefully, you have somebody else that you can play that's in, like, you know, in one of the 4 afternoon games or in the Monday night or Sunday night game. But, you know, it's no different than waiting on Kyler Murray or waiting on DeAndre Hopkins, things like that. It's, you know, this is well-worn territory for the fantasy managers out there.
Mm-hmm. Jake, would you wait it out, or what would you have to wait it out on Chris Carson? What would you have to have as a backup option?
I mean, I'm not all excited for Chris Carson his first game back with the fact that Alex Collins has looked fine and Rashad Penny, despite not looking good himself, is back. So I don't even think I would even really wait, honestly. I'm going down the list. I mean, I'm talking RB3 range if I'm waiting on Chris Carson. Like that, I have to be pretty. Yeah, I'm thinking like Jamal Williams against Pittsburgh. Or Chris Carson. Maybe I wait on Chris Carson. That's just the thing. So, yeah, I'm not even looking to start him in this first game back, honestly.
What are the fireworks potential in this game if Aaron Rodgers does indeed start, you guys? I mean, you know, we know Russell Wilson going to be back for the Seahawks. If we get Aaron Rodgers out there as well, is 49.5, which is the total on this game, too low?
I love that everybody's playing the narrative of, like, Aaron Rodgers is going to give the big middle finger to everybody in the NFL and throw for 500 yards and 4 touchdowns. And blah. Like, to be honest, like, Aaron Rodgers will do that any week.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think he's extra motivated because of what his last 2 weeks have been.
No, and, you know, the offense is better with him, but it's also a balanced offense where he's been, you know, more touchdown efficient. You know, he's not throwing for 350 yards like he used to. So I think this is fine. Like, you know, if you say 49.5, yeah, if Aaron Rodgers starts, that feels low. But, you know, honestly, is it though? I mean, how effective do you think Russell Wilson's going to be? Like
27 to 24 seems like a very fair score here, and that's just right at the number. You know, it's slightly over. I think I would lean slightly over. But I don't think it's, you know, I really don't think there's a shootout potential in this game. I think the Seahawks defense is a lot better. Green Bay defense is pretty good. Russell Wilson, we're not sure he can grip the ball as good as he did.
Yeah.
There could be problems there. So, and Aaron Rodgers, you know, the opposite could be true with Aaron Rodgers. It could be just too much stuff in his head, and, you know, he's off his game as opposed to just coming out, you know, scorching earth.
You know, Funston, that's a good point that you bring up. And, you know, last week we saw it with Dak Prescott. First game back from injury, everyone's like, yep, back in the lineup. And then it was pretty ugly for Dak, right? Is there any concern for that with Russell Wilson as well? And I guess in fantasy actionability terms, it's like, who would you have to have been playing in his place the last couple of weeks to still give that guy one more week and see what Russell is when he comes back?
I think the tough calls are going to be like the Derek Carr, Russell Wilsons, or honestly even like if Taysom Hill were to get the start, would I rather just like roll the dice on Taysom Hill, or would I roll out Russell Wilson? And you know, I always source Virginia Zakis, you know, in our inside injuries, and she thinks this was like, you know, should have been 3 more weeks, that he's not going to have the muscle strength in the finger, he's going to have a hard time gripping the ball, and that this thing wasn't at this point nearly close to ready. So this is another Antonio Gibson where he's playing through something that, you know, the recommendation is you're probably still 2 to 3 weeks away from where you should be playing.
It's going to be interesting for sure. It's going to be, I think, one of the more fun games to watch. And that always is the case when the Seahawks and Packers get together. But this is for a case that we're not used to seeing. when these two teams get together as much as we've seen them play. Really, like going back a decade now, feels like these teams meet each other every year in one way or another. So we've got a different look of this particular Seahawks and Packers matchup. Sunday Night Football, you guys, is the Chiefs and the Chargers. The Chiefs and the Raiders. Chiefs are 2.5-point favorites in Las Vegas. Another high total, 52.5. And Brandon, as I was looking through your rankings last night, I noticed a bullish one for Kenyan Drake. So let's hear the case on Drake.
Well, I like to say here we are halfway through the season, and you are what your numbers kind of say you are at this point. There's some luck, but like for the most part, I mean, Kenyan Drake right now in half PPR leagues is RB29 on the season. I think I ranked him RB28. But you look at his numbers since John Gruden's been gone, he's averaging in the 3 games 11 touches per game, 15 half PPR fantasy points per game. He's been huge in the passing game. You look at this matchup, the Chiefs give up production to running backs in the passing game. I just feel like, I got to at least rank Kenyan Drake where he's been delivering for the season in a matchup that's conducive to his skills and the fact that he's trending up since the coaching change has happened. And he played a lot of snaps in the passing game last week, so that's trending up as well.
For what it's worth, Vic Tafur, Las Vegas Raiders beat writer for us at The Athletic, and someone who's been covering the Raiders for a long time, knows this team very, very well. He was on the Tuesday edition of this show where I talk with all of our beat writers, or with a handful of our beat writers, and he said that there's really no reason to think that this Drake usage is suddenly going to change, that Rich Bisaccia, Greg Olson calling the plays now, that they like Drake in this sort of role, and that he would bet on this being something that remains for Drake the rest of the season. So you Drake managers out there, take that for what it's worth. I think it's worth quite a bit. Jake, on the other side of this game, we've talked a lot ad nauseum about the Chiefs and just the fact that they have not looked like the same old Chiefs. So what do you want to see from them? What if you're a Patrick Mahomes guy, if you're a Tyreek Hill guy, what do you want to see from the Chiefs that has you feeling better about those big investments over the remaining 1/3 of the fantasy regular season?
I'm going to go back to the Monday show, and I want to see Patrick Mahomes have confidence in people not named Tyreek and Travis. That's really what it comes down to, is the reason that they're struggling to go back, if anybody didn't hear or watch on Monday, is they're struggling because teams are playing cover 2 and keeping everything in front of them, and instead of going to Demarcus Robinson and Byron Pringle and Mecole Hardman, who in their own right are having problems. They're not getting open enough on their own plays. I mean, Josh Gordon can't get open, legitimately can't even get open, and he doesn't trust to throw to them even when they are, because they're also dropping passes. So he's forcing the ball downfield. As you go back to the Giants game, he forced the ball downfield to Tyreek Hill, despite Demarcus Robinson was leaking out to the right one-on-one and was getting past the defender, but he went to Tyreek Hill and almost got intercepted. So I need to see Patrick Mahomes have more confidence in everybody else, because if he's just going to keep playing this game of chuck it up to Kelsey and Hill, hope they catch it, and if not, I'm dumping it off to the running backs, it's going to continue to be the same mess we've seen for 3 weeks now.
Got to ask you guys this. Clyde Edwards-Helaire designated to return from IR. This is a Sunday night game. If he does return, he will have been off for, a month, maybe a little bit more than a month. Is there any way, any scenario, Brandon, in which you're holding out and waiting to see if Edwards-Helaire is up for Sunday night?
I mean, if it's in there, you got to take it serious. It's kind of like Chris Carson, right? Like, I mean,
but is there anything where you're going to actually hold on and wait because this is Sunday? If it's a 1 p.m. Eastern Sunday kickoff, sure. But with Sunday night being the case here, is there any scenario where you're going to wait it out?
I guess it'd have to be a pretty deep league, and you'd maybe have to have a Derek Gore as a fallback or something like that. That's just like
Drake.
Or Drake, yeah. But yeah, I think you could do it in that regard. I would be a little bit leery. I was wondering though, because it's interesting. The Chiefs were scoring like 30 plus a game with Clyde Edwards-Helaire in the lineup, and they didn't get talked about. I wonder how much of an impact that has had overall. I mean, we know that the teams are rolling deep safeties and stuff, but I wonder if they feel like there's just, Darrell Williams is not enough of a threat that they're willing to change their defenses a certain way because of that. And if Clyde Edwards comes back and they, suddenly putting up 30 plus again, it'd be, lend some credence to the fact that might have been the missing straw in the drink there.
Yeah, maybe it's something we could see as soon as this weekend. Another game that really looking forward to. We got a fun Week 10 slate. That Sunday nighter is one of them that makes it as fun as I'm anticipating it to be. The Monday night game is Rams and 49ers. Rams are 4-point favorites on BetMGM, 49.5 the total in this game. This is another one that feels relatively straightforward from a fantasy perspective and who we're playing and who we're not playing. So I'm going to go back to a guy we've talked about already a couple of times this week. The three of us talked about him on Monday. yesterday, me, Chris Vaccaro, and Brandon Marianne Lee talked about him. Are you firing up Brandon Aiyuk, Jake? Or in what situation are you firing up Brandon Aiyuk? How are you treating him for Week 10?
Still as a fringy wide receiver 3 or 4 because the matchup doesn't help. It's not as like detrimental as like shut down everybody that gets faced against them, but it is concerning enough that it has been 2 games for Brandon Aiyuk, but Debo's also been left out pretty much. Those not left out for Debo's purposes of those 2 games. Kittle is back. All 3 are here. So that's the thing, is all 3 are here, which is great for the 49ers, but similar to like backfields when we see this happen is, is it going to definitively be Aiyuk? Is Debo going to bounce back? So I'm a little hesitant. I think that, put it this way, Brandon Ayuk's not going to finish wide receiver 38. It's going to be either 20 spots too low or 20 spots too high.
Yeah. Are you in the same boat on this one, Brandon?
Yeah, I think I am. I feel like he's not going to be wide receiver 58, though. I don't know if he's 20 spots higher than that, but I actually think that he's more, that he could be like a wide receiver 3. I'm kind of not with Jake in that I think he actually does land in that wide receiver 3 territory, and that's kind of where he is. That the upside and the downside at this point aren't as wide as Jake says they are.
If he's a wide receiver 3 this week, if he is like wide receiver 32 overall, does that, I mean, would you be more bullish on him in terms of not being a wide receiver 3? Like if he gives you another wide receiver 3 week after what we've seen from him the last 2 weeks, is that him settling into what he is for the rest of the season, or is that him still trending back toward wide receiver 2 land?
I kind of feel like, again, that what Aiyuk did last year with different quarterbacks, with Debo out of the lineup a lot, that Debo's established as the one. Unless Jimmy Garoppolo is not the quarterback, and there's a sea change in Trey Lance, and he has different preferences. But we know that Jimmy Garoppolo leans on Debo, and now George Kittle. There's muscle memory there with George Kittle. I just feel like Aiyuk doesn't ascend above his wide receiver 3 spot in this lineup, and therefore I would expect kind of continual wide receiver 3 returns.
Can we make a case for Van Jefferson on the Rams side of this one? Yeah, Brandon, you've got this one?
Yeah, I think you can.
He was. I think that was because you yelled at us.
I'm excited for Van Jefferson.
Pop it. I kind of am too. I mean, look at Deshaun Jackson's gone. He kind of distinctly has that deep threat role now. You look at Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp; they're different kind of receivers. But the last 3 games, he's had his season high in targets, 7, 6, and 7. He had a season high 75 snaps last week. In this particular matchup, the 49ers secondary does have some talent issues. They've given up big plays. I think they're 4th most in 40-yard pass plays allowed. So I think there's going to be opportunities when you have threats like Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp underneath to play off of that and take your deep shots. And now it's just Van Jefferson, no Deshaun Jackson.
Jake, coming back to you for one more thing on this game. As I said, another one of these games that's living just south of 50 with the total 49.5 on BetMGM. Over under, what do you got in this one?
For the Rams game?
Rams-Niners. 49.5.
That's I was looking because you in my earpiece, I didn't hear what you said, so that's why I'm gonna say I don't want to bet it. Push. Like I would stay away from it. I mean, sometimes I would stay away from it. Like I want to lean over, but I mean, how much? The Rams could still make Jimmy Garoppolo be Jimmy Garoppolo, which is a 2 interception scary game any given week. So I like, if I'm leaning one way or another, I want to lean over, but I don't like that number to bet. Put it that way.
All right, there you go. Next game up is the Thursday night game, Ravens and Dolphins. If you're listening to this after Thursday, fast forward a couple of minutes. I'll give you a little hint too. Got an ad break coming after this. So if you hear me talking about an ad, you've made it past Ravens and Dolphins. Guys, Devonta Freeman's RB2 case, it sounds, I haven't heard anything official this morning. I just came off another show, so excuse me if I missed it, but sounds like no Latavius Murray for the Ravens tonight against the Dolphins. Jake, what's Devonta Freeman's RB2 case in the case that Latavius is indeed out?
I'm still not going to make it. I'm not going to put him up to RB2. I'll put him as mid-high RB3 because it really comes down to, it's like Le'Veon Bell is still seeing enough, and Le'Veon Bell is getting some of the goal line carries. Devonta Freeman's the lead, but it's still enough of split that I don't really want to force myself down this road unless I have to. Put it this way, I have Freeman in the same conversation as Jordan Howard. And like we're doing Devonta Freeman and Jordan Howard. We're doing this in week 10 already. So, but that's the conversation we're kind of having right there. Alex Collins, I don't have Chris Carson and like those kind of names. That's where I have him. I think that's where he deserves to be, despite, yes, he has a little bit more upside. But if he doesn't score the touchdown, that's really what it comes down to. If he doesn't get a touchdown, what do we get? 60 yards, 70 yards? So
Probably.
That's
In
why
a best
Le'Veon
case
Bell's doing
scenario.
too much of the work.
Yeah, what I thought was, just looking at the industry consensus rankings on the, Devonta Freeman and Le'Veon Bell. Le'Veon Bell was like 52 at RB, and Devonta Freeman was 29 or something. I'm like, there shouldn't be close to that big of a discrepancy. I mean, Le'Veon Bell's close to splitting the carries, and if he's the goal line guy, then I can see ranking Devonta Freeman ahead of Le'Veon Bell, but I think, that's like Jake said, as Freeman being an RB3 and Bell maybe being like maybe not quite cracking the RB3, but like maybe right around that top 40 to 37 range at RB. I think he deserves to be a lot closer to where Freeman's at.
Well, because you just said what it is. This is the Cardinals, what the Cardinals used to be. It should be a lot closer than it is.
Like the Connor Edmonds thing, yeah.
All right, guys, raise your hand if you're starting Jacoby Brissett in multiple Superflex leagues tonight. Because I definitely am. Someone who I'm not starting in any league, I actually don't think I have him in any league, is Myles Gaskin. And this is an interesting one. I think Myles Gaskin is actually one of the most interesting players on the slate this week, because one thing we can't argue with, the volume has been there for him the last couple of weeks. Carries over the last 3 weeks, 15, 12, and 20. Targets over those last 3 weeks, 4, 4, and 6. No doubt about it. The volume has been there for him, and we have every reason to expect it will be there for him again tonight. But he hasn't done a lot with it, you guys. Like, that's just the bottom line. So, Brandon, I mean, is volume, no matter what, king here still with Gaskin, or is there an argument for ignoring the volume and sitting him down?
Well, I mean, contextually, there's an argument. Like, if you have, like, some good guys, but his last 3 games, he's averaged 20 touches. Like, I almost don't need to hear anything else. Like, in a week where there's buys and, like, I'm looking at a flex guy, I'm going to go with the guy that's getting 20 touches per game. And this, Jacoby Brissett has a 10-catch game to Myles Gaskin on the ledger. Baltimore can be hurt that way, like, with the running backs and the passing game. They give up a decent amount of production there. Yeah, he's RB 18 on the year and half PPR. Like, I would just rather it's a very safe floor when you're getting 20 touches per game, even if it's not a high ceiling.
Not even averaging 3 yards a carry in those last 3 games too. But yeah, this is the
the
comparison I was going to make. The comparison is going to say Mike Davis. This really comes down to this is the workload we thought Mike Davis was going to get, and nobody really loves Mike Davis. But if you're going to get 18 touches a game, sure, you're going to be a low-end RB2. Like, I would agree with the first part of this, Brandon. I don't care what the name of the running back is. If you're giving me 18-plus touches, you're a low-end RB2.
Yeah, and it's not like Savon Ahmed's ripping off 4.5 yards per carry. He was like down there as well. So there's no one that's knocking on the door to take away Myles Gaskin's playing time right now.
Yeah, exactly the case in this Thursday night game for sure. After years of fine print contracts from Big Wireless, we've learned there's often a catch, but with Mint Mobile, there isn't one. Mint Mobile is the first company to sell wireless service online only by cutting out retail stores. No crazy overhead costs that get passed down to you in the form of mystery fees. All that does get passed down to you is sweet, sweet savings. For people looking for even more savings, Mint Mobile offers premium wireless for just $15 a month. All their plans come with unlimited talk and text and high-speed data delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. You use your own phone, you get all your contacts moved over, you keep the same phone number, all that. Nothing changes there. All that changes is what you get from Mint. And if you're not 100% satisfied, Mint Mobile has you covered with their 7-day money-back guarantee. To get your new wireless plan for just $15 a month and get the plan shipped to your door free, go to mintmobile.com/fantasy. That's mintmobile.com/fantasy. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/fantasy. Is something preventing you from achieving your goals? What interferes with your happiness? Check out betterhelp.com/AFF. BetterHelp will assess your needs and match you with your own licensed professional therapist. You'll connect in a safe and private online environment. It's very convenient, very easy to use. You can start communicating in less than 48 hours. It's not a crisis line. It's not self-help. It is genuine, true, real, professional counseling done securely online. You can send a message to your counselor at any time. You're going to get timely and thoughtful responses. You can also schedule weekly video or phone sessions with your counselor. Again, these are licensed counselors with a number of specialties. And as a listener of the Athletic Fantasy Football Podcast, you'll get 10% off your first month by visiting our sponsor at betterhelp.com/AFF. Join the more than 1 million people who have taken charge of their mental health. Again, that's BetterHelp, HELP.com/AFF. All right, Brandon and Jake, we're back. Everyone who skipped over the Thursday night game because it's Friday or Saturday when they're listening to it, you guys are back too. Let's get into the Cowboys and the Falcons. Cowboys 9.5-point favorites. Highest total on the board for Week 10, 54.5. That line, that total suggests that we have a big Cowboys rebound coming after the dud this team laid against the Broncos a week ago. You buying that, Jake?
A rebound? Yeah, mostly because I'm putting faith in Dak rebounding. Really what it comes down to is, we talked about this a couple times with other players. Early games back, getting back into the mix of things. You're getting Gallup back, which helps offset the loss of Jarwin. But also just the matchup is going to do favors to help this entire situation. Really what it comes down to is just, if we knew Dak was 100%, in his own right, I think we would have zero concerns about everybody involved. CeeDee Lamb was banged up during that stretch too. Mari Cooper was dealing this team just needs health, and it sounds like everybody's on track to be back to 100% this week, and that's really all it comes down to.
Yeah, that's what I had written down. Dak with a calf injury, Zeke with the knee injury going in and out. We know that
CeeDee Lamb
had the ankle,
rolled his ankle, and Mari Cooper's dealing with the hamstring, which is weird. Coming off a bye, you'd expect a team to be healthy, but they were maybe the opposite. So, I would be tempted to. Is the line still 9.5? Because I'd be tempted to at least take Atlanta to cover on that. I think they're still enough of a concern. And Atlanta's, I was on them to cover against the Saints last week, and I think Atlanta does a pretty good job. I don't know what they are on the year on covering the spreads, but I feel like they'd be a good bet this week.
You both are higher than the consensus on Matt Ryan, so Funston, take that one step further and make the case for Matt Ryan starting fantasy QB in Week 10.
Yeah, well, you throw out Week 1 when he didn't throw a touchdown pass, he's kind of been Carson Wentz. It's been like 2 touchdowns every week, and a lot of those games are 300 yards. He's been doing it without Calvin Ridley. A couple weeks ago, he had the one low yardage total, but other than that, it's been kind of just a 2-touchdown, 300-yard machine for a while. And you look at Dallas; they have some talented players on defense, but they, even like Trevon Diggs has been known to gamble, and they do give up big plays in the passing game. So they're not they're a good defense, but they're not a defense that you can't beat. They're not a shutdown defense.
Yeah, Jake, you're there too.
Just throw at Diggs one way or another. You're getting a touchdown if you throw his way. You just don't know which way it's going to go. It really comes down. Yeah, what everything you just said. The bad game was against Carolina. That was with multiple interceptions, but the Saints defense has been one of the best defenses rushing and against the pass this year, and he just, for all intents and purposes, lit them up on, what was it?
Looked pretty good.
35. Yeah, 35 attempts, and it was like 302. So, yeah, it just comes down to what Brandon said. The reason we don't love Matt Ryan and Carson Wentz is the same reason we don't love Kirk Cousins, is because if they don't throw for 302 plus, then they finish as like QB 18 because they don't run. So, but this is one of the setups where, yeah, Dallas might get an interception or two, so you're always intrigued in their defense. But on paper, for what Matt Ryan should do on the other side, he should be fine. And that's with Kyle Pitts essentially doing nothing.
Well, that's another question here. You've got Kyle Pitts having a couple of down games in a row. We have still the no Calvin Ridley wide receiver group. So we're looking at Olamide Zaccheaus and Russell Gage. Is there anyone there that you want to jump out? Don't care?
No, don't
care.
Not chasing any of them. Just like the Saints.
We're in a pretty good place with Kyle Pitts when he puts up 60 yards, and we're calling that another down game.
It's very true.
Oh yeah, no.
I guess it's
Kyle
just like
Pitts is fine.
Expecting more, right? I feel like it's reasonable.
Did you watch
for us
that?
to
Like the first
more.
drive last week, he missed a touch. Matt Ryan overthrew him on a touchdown. He was wide open going down the sideline. His first catch of the game would have been 50-yard touchdown pass. It was right there. So he just missed on a huge game, and that's encouraging against the Saints.
Yeah. Well, hey, speaking of the Saints, the team that the Falcons beat last week, let's talk about them. They are playing the Titans. Titans -3, 44.5. First of all, before we get into anything with this, with the individuals in this game, like, shouldn't that spread be bigger than 3? Titans at home, -3 against the Saints team that is clearly like doesn't know exactly what it's doing on offense, and now maybe no Alvin Kamara. Like, I feel like this line is suspiciously low. Are either of you guys with me on that?
You know what? I mean, Tennessee's looked like one of the best teams in the league for a while. I have a little bit of, because the bottom has fallen out of a lot of teams randomly, and is this one of those letdown weeks for the Titans, who've had a lot of good wins in a row now? Saints coming off of a tough loss. I can see the psychology working against them this week.
It feels like the sort of line that like makes me a little bit afraid to. And it's -3, -105 on BetMGM right now. So the -3 is favored. They're sort of giving themselves some room to bump it to 3.5 or 4, and then just move the juice to -110. But that's still something that I don't know. I'm thinking about that reverse. They've got it as a. I don't know. I can't. That line is that's a strange line to me, especially with some of the offensive issues. Yeah, exactly. So much it's messing with my head. As I said, Alvin Kamara dealing with an injury. Jake, how high are you on Mark Ingram if he ends up drawing not only the start but maybe having the backfield largely to himself?
At the start, you would have to say Mark Ingram is on that RB1 conversation. Maybe I'm looking at. Let me pull up my ranks right now. So James Conner's at 12. I'd still go Connor and Henderson. I have Nick Chubb at 14 because I have Nick Chubb playing. I mean, we're going to have to wait and see. He was going to be the first one we care about who actually passes through 2 negatives after having the vaccine. It's interesting. We still haven't had that happen yet. So, and then Jacobs and Mitchell right behind there. Jacobs splits enough with Drake that I'd probably put Mark Ingram right there. Mark Ingram would be a top 15 running back for me.
Funston, you on the same page with that?
It'd be probably, I'm looking at mine. Mitchell, I think I'd have him about 17. If Chubb didn't play, I'd probably slot D'Ernest Johnson one spot ahead of Ingram. So they would both be mid-teens.
See, I was saving D'Ernest Johnson because I knew it was on the schedule.
Yes, he isn't. Those are both 1 p.m. Eastern games, aren't they? The Saints and the Browns.
Let's see. I got it in front of me.
Yes.
Yep, they're both early.
So we'll know for sure on both of those guys and their respective starters if they're playing. So, yeah, Mark Ingram could be bright. I mean, we were just talking earlier this week about him carving out a meaningful enough role to at least be on rosters, and now we're talking about him being an easy starter if Alvin Kamara is unable to go. How about Taysom Hill? Still nothing here. Kat Terrell was also on the Tuesday episode, and she said, if he's good, if he's cleared, he's going to be the starting quarterback. So if that ends up being the case, where are we sitting on him, Funston?
Well, I think we've kind of talked about, I don't know if it would change. If Taysom Hill's a starter, he's in the QB1 conversation. I mentioned it earlier in the show that I have Russell Wilson at 11 this week. I would probably vacillate around with, like, do I want to put Taysom Hill in front of Russell Wilson? Do I want to put him behind him? But I would make sure I had him in the QB1, neighborhood for sure.
I have Russ at 12, but that's also with Kyler in there at 10. But Taysom Hill would probably be right there with Carson Wentz at 11, honestly. And it's funny you said that. I have a league where Joe Burrow's on a bye, and my options were going to have to be Ben Roethlisberger. But I also picked up Taysom Hill in the hopes that I don't have to use Ben Roethlisberger.
Yeah, Taysom Hill, a much easier play.
Are we in agreement? We're Team Taysom, though, right? Like, it should not be Trevor Siemian, in my mind. Like,
no.
It depends on what their offense is. Like, if they actually bring in Odell Beckham, then it should be Simeon. But if it's going to continue to be this mess of what it is, then continue with Taysom Hill. The problem is if when you
I
have
don't know about that, though. I mean, Michael Thomas did just fine with Taysom Hill last year, and Trevor Simeon's been one of the most accurate quarterback. He doesn't have a season of 60% or higher.
Taysom Hill's 70% of 3 yards at a time. That's why. So he fits what they're going with right now. You take a shot down.
Odell's not deep threat anymore.
I'm saying he opens up the offense more.
Yeah. I think Taysom Hill's running, and the threat of running might open up.
It's just got to be a better offense with Taysom Hill, doesn't it?
No. I don't know. Real life. Hill, but I was going with the question of what I want for fantasy. If I want the wide receivers and Odell to be relevant, I don't want Taysom at quarterback.
Yeah, okay. That makes I could see the argument for that for sure. But I just think we're looking at a Taysom offense for sure eventually, and maybe as soon as this week. Buccaneers in Washington, you guys. Next game to talk about here. Bucks 9.5-point favorites. 51.5 is the total on this game. Let's actually look at the Bucks first. Antonio Brown looking unlikely. Gronkowski maybe unlikely again. Chris Godwin dealing with an injury. It's a bare cupboard potentially for Tom Brady. Does that give you any concerns at all, Jake?
No, because it's Tom Brady. Honestly, I really don't give a damn. He'll make Tyler Johnson, and Brashard Perriman's going to come back and go 102 in his first game back with the Buccaneers or something. Like, it's Tom Brady. I don't care. Yeah, so Tom Brady doesn't take a hit. Mike Evans, if there's no Chris Godwin, would be a top 5 wide receiver this week.
Might
smash
get a touchdown
everything.
hat trick, yeah.
Yeah, so this is just a smash. Maybe they lean a little bit more on Leonard Fournette and Ronald Jones annoys us as he maybe steals a touchdown or something like that. But the tight end situation looks like it's definitely no Gronkowski because they brought in Darren Fells signed to the practice squad. So, you try to guess if it's going to be O.J. Howard or Cameron Brate, which means it's probably just going to be whoever their third is at this point. Is it still Leclerc? I think Leclerc's on another team now, so I don't even know who it is anymore. But
shows you how much it matters.
Yeah, exactly. I don't care much about Tom Brady and what happens is I just honestly care from the other side of the mess when we get to that.
Yeah. Oh, well, let's get to that then right here. And we're going to start with Brandon making a case, and it can go right into you, I suppose, Jake, on Gibson. But Brandon, let's hear the case for J.D. McKissic, another guy that you're bullish on according to your rankings.
Yeah, it's kind of the same case as Kenyan Drake, just getting a ton of production in the passing game. Good luck, Antonio Gibson, with his fractured shin running against this Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense. You can throw against them. It's always been kind of one of their susceptibility areas. So you look at McKissic, 20 catches in his last 3 games, an average of 86 yards per game in that stretch. I mean, they're not getting anything running the ball right now. And so I think, we've seen it in a lot of cases when you can't run the ball. Sometimes you just take that third down back and use him as a de facto running game. And I think they're doing that a bit right now with McKissic.
So, Jake, what does that mean for Antonio Gibson? Are you sticking with him? Can you stand by Antonio Gibson in this game?
Stand by? No, I'm not trying to stand by. I don't know if he can stand by himself. It really comes down to it. He's a low-end RB2, high-end RB3 because the opportunity here is that almost 2 weeks they feel like they can give him a better workload in the teens and see what you have. And if you gave me Antonio Gibson and you told me he's getting 15 touches, it's still against the Buccaneers defense, and I would still have him as a solid RB2, mostly because how you beat them is in the passing game. And I actually have Drake and McKissic back-to-back in my ranking. So I think it's more McKissic. And also the risk is what happens if he looks no better than he did before their bye, and Washington just is like, all right, we're going back to Jared Patterson again, which they did right before the bye. So I just have too many concerns about what his health is. Sure, Gibson could still finish top 10, but there's just so much downside here.
You know who I'm
so long
concerned
since
with?
he has finished top 10, though. I'd have a hard time not starting McKissic over Gibson if I had both of them. I don't know. I might just go with McKissic over Gibson. I have him ranked that way.
I'm a little worried about Logan Thomas, you guys. I just felt like we'd be having some better news on him early in the week, and we haven't gotten it. And I've got him in the league. I'll for sure be playing him if he plays. But that, I thought we would have, very strong thumbs up, all good on Wednesday, and that just wasn't the case coming out of practice. So something to keep our eye on as this week gets closer and closer to Sunday. We're going to have to keep an eye on Colts and Jaguars to a certain extent. Funston, let's knock this out. Riding the Wentz wagon this week?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to make too much out of what the Jaguars did to Josh Allen last week. I mean,
no.
We have like 2 months worth of evidence that this Jaguars pass defense wasn't good, and Wentz has like 2 months of just throwing for mid 200 yards and 2 touchdowns or 3 touchdowns over and over and over again. He's about as consistent right now at the quarterback position as anybody's been. So I don't, the matchup and his consistency, you got to play him as. I think he's a QB1 this week, back end, but I think you have to play him.
Jake, what's that mean for T.Y. Hilton if he's able to go?
T.Y. Hilton's one of my sleepers this week. I think that he's in a great spot because the biggest thing is the Jaguars, you beat him. They're not stopping you from doing much of anything. But interesting enough in the passing game is they're really susceptible to slot wide receivers. Now, T.Y. Hilton doesn't spend the entire time in the slot, but with Michael Pittman and his brief time out there, T.Y. Hilton was in the slot about 30% of the time. So that's the opportunity here is that, similar to late last year and then that one game where he went 4 for 40 or 4 for 80, Is there still some big play upside here? Obviously, it's a risk. He's still in the wide receiver 4 conversation, but he's in that same wide receiver higher end where, you could get 4 for 80 or you could get 1 for 13, and that would just be it. But I would lean a lot more towards the 4 for 80 this week.
Yeah. All right, Brandon, here's the moment you've been waiting for this whole entire show. I just know it. It's Browns-Patriots time. Browns and Patriots and D'Ernest Johnson. We've got Patriots -2 at last check. 45 is the total in this game. And we know that Nick Chubb is dealing with COVID list stuff. He has to get through the protocol. As Jake said, is vaccinated, so all he needs is 2 negative tests. Doesn't need to do anything more than that. But if he doesn't play, how resurgent is D'Ernest?
Yeah, I already said I'd put him a spot ahead of Mark Ingram. He'd be a high-volume guy. We've already seen this play out where Hunt and Chubb have both been out, and D'Ernest Johnson was mid-20s in carries. And this is a game where both coaches will be happy to play a war of attrition. It's not going to be like a bunch of passing. So, and we'll see who gets cleared for New England, but whatever. I think, this will be them riding D'Ernest Johnson. It's in their DNA to run the ball. New England's shown, some vulnerability against the run. So I think D'Ernest Johnson would have another solid game. Not as good as the Denver game. And people got people lost their jobs on the Denver defense side for that one. But, I still think it would be a pretty productive day for D'Ernest Johnson.
He'd be inside my top 10. I'd start him over DeAndre Swift at this point.
Woo-hoo. The other thing is,
Felton
is also in the COVID. So
I don't even care about Felton.
I'm just saying they might actually throw D'Ernest Johnson the ball 4 or 5 times. Like that. Well, that could also
and that's what I was going to get to. The point is that Nick Chubb even last week wasn't over the 60%. He has not hit the 60% snap share. But in the game where there was no Chubb and Hunt with Felton and with Jake Funk, that D'Ernest Johnson was still out there 80+%. That's what I'm going to, is that it's strange but true, for that saying, is that D'Ernest Johnson's a bell cow when the other guys are out. So that's why I would put him one spot in front of DeAndre Swift against Pittsburgh.
So I've got written out here something as Rhamondre Stevenson's opportunity, but he's dealing with an injury himself. Damian Harris, we know, is dealing with an injury. How are we handling the Patriots backfield, both with and without Stevenson? We know how we're handling it with Harris for the most part, but with Stevenson, without Stevenson, how are we handling this, Jake?
He doesn't. Stevenson doesn't really play a factor for me for Harris. If Harris is
healthy,
that's
what I'm saying. We know if Harris is healthy, it's Harris and whatever. But if
no,
Harris
but that's what I'm saying. You said with or without Stevenson, so I'm saying without Stevenson, I'm not moving. I'm not doing anything with Harris. That's what I'm saying. I'm not moving him up or anything. Harris.
What I mean is with Steven. Let's just, for the sake of this conversation, assume no Harris because we know what to do with Harris.
Oh, okay.
So no Harris with Stevenson, no Harris, and also no Stevenson. How are we handling this backfield?
Okay. So all right, that's much more clear. So all right, so no Harris. Stevenson would pretty much get almost to his level. He'd be a back end RB2 because he's already showed it. He's used the same in the passing game too. Is getting some of that work. He's actually getting more work when both of them are active. So Stevenson would be in that conversation. If there is no Stevenson and no Harris, then it's good luck. Take your flyer. It's probably Brandon Bolden, but it might be J.J. Taylor. And you know what? Honestly, the entire backfield might only get 9 carries. We've seen this before. We've had other teams. The Ravens earlier this year. We've had teams where there's just such a cluster back there that they don't even turn to the backfield. So if you want to chase it, I would guess Bolden just because of recent use, but I am not. If Stevenson and Harris are out, I am not putting any faith in either one of them. See who the guy they shined off the street ends up being, because they don't have anybody on the practice squad. I checked that yesterday during the show with Ratcliffe. There's nobody. They don't even have a running back on their practice squad, so you have to see who they even bring in.
Kevin Falk is. I heard he's been working out, getting ready.
I was looking for Kevin Falk.
It's gonna be. I mean, I would love to see. Not that I want Damian Harris to be hurt, but just for, we've been talking about Stevenson all season. It would be fun to see Rhamondre Stevenson with a shot at playing the Damian Harris role, just to see what he could do, especially in a game like this where Funston, and I think it was you, said like neither of these coaches is going to be sad to play like a 40 snap on both sides game, right? And this game lasts 2 hours and 37 minutes, and it's 16-10 for the winner. Like,
so
it would be
fun.
The
under is what you're saying.
I mean, what I say, 45 is the total on this game, and it's just, I mean,
I would take the under on that.
Yeah, neither of these teams. It feels too easy to be true. 45, but that's what we're looking at in a game where it's pretty easy, I think, to fade both of these teams' passing games going into it. Oh boy, I lost it. There she is. There we go. Cashback credit cards are so 2020. Earn Bitcoin instead. BlockFi has the world's first Bitcoin rewards credit card that lets you earn an unlimited 1.5% in Bitcoin on all qualifying purchases. You can grow your Bitcoin portfolio buying your groceries, paying bills, filling up at the tank, whatever it might be. You're going to earn 1.5% back in Bitcoin on all qualifying purchases without any reward limits. There's no annual fee, no foreign transaction fees, just Bitcoin earned on every single qualifying purchase. BlockFi is a leader in crypto, named to Forbes FinTech 50 list in 2021. And our listeners are going to get a bonus of $25 in crypto after making the first purchase with the credit card when they sign up at blockfi.com/fantasy. That's 25% bonus in crypto deposited right into your account after you make your first purchase, but you have to use our URL, blockfi.com/fantasy. Start earning Bitcoin back on all your qualifying purchases today. BlockFi.com/fantasy. Not all are eligible. Geographic, regulatory, and underwriting restrictions apply. Fees and terms subject to change. Additional terms of service at BlockFi.com. BlockFi is a financial technology company. Banking services provided by Evolve Bank and Trust, member FDIC. Ritual is a plant-based, sugar-free protein powder reimagined to be a building block for your daily life. Protein powders and supplements. It can be a little bit intimidating, but Ritual was made to make nutrition safe, transparent, and free of all the other BS that can make it hard to find the right products. Ritual is also made without gluten or genetically modified ingredients, provides essential protein and nutrients that support bone health, brain health, and lean muscle mass. Mixing it up is easy as shaking 1 scoop into your water bottle, and the one-of-a-kind recipe gives it a richer, tastier flavor than any other shake. My favorite thing about Ritual, I've got some of the product here at home, and my favorite thing about it is exactly what it says about being transparent. I love that I know exactly what goes into it, and just as importantly, why what goes into it. Makes me feel good about what I'm putting in my body. So why not do the same and shake up your Ritual? To make trying something new a little bit less scary, Ritual offers a money-back guarantee if you're not 100% in love. Plus, our listeners are going to get 10% off during the first 3 months. Just visit ritual.com/TAFF to add essential protein today. That is ritual.com/TAFF. Couple more games to talk about here, guys. Let's first get into Jets and Bills. Bills 13-point favorites. 48 is the total in this game. What do we think about a world with the Jets wide receivers with Corey Davis back? We've seen some good stuff from Elijah Moore over the last few weeks. We know Mike White is going to start in this game. But with Corey Davis back, does that muddy up the picture, Funston?
Yeah, it does. Like when Corey Davis has been in there, he's been the number one, but that was with Zach Wilson. You know, we know that backup quarterbacks sometimes have different favorites and stuff, and Elijah Moore, you know, playing backup early on, and kind of is stepping up with these backups a bit. So you'd wonder. I think it would muddy. I think it would make it hard to absolutely slam dunk predict that Corey Davis would be the number one go-to option there. But the good thing about it is these quarterbacks in the non-Zach Wilson world are throwing the ball a lot, and they're actually throwing it pretty well. We'll see if that continues, but it's a terrible matchup. So I would probably, given all the unknowns of this, be trying as hard as I could to just get out of really leaning on any Jet outside of the underneath, like the Jamison Crowder. I think no matter what kind of matchup, you're always looking at him in the range of 4 to 8 catches, 45 to 85 yards kind of a deal, and you can live with that as a floor.
How about Devin Singletary, Jake? What's his Week 10 opportunity look like to your eyes?
If there's no Zach Moss, like RB2, but this is, I don't ever really want to mess around too much with this backfield in general. It's one that I hate dealing with when they're both out there. I will maybe, if I need an option, deal with it. It's like I said, it's still an RB2 because it's still Josh Allen, and it's still frustrating to predict any use, even when they're down. But again, no Zach Moss would have Devin Singletary, just workload-wise, probably in the teens. So that's why he'd be an RB2. So, yeah.
Here's the problem with the Bills is they've won 40-0, 35-0, and the running backs hardly got any volume. And then last week they lose 9-6 to Jacksonville, and the running backs combined for 9 carries. Like, there's not a game script where Buffalo cares to give the running backs the ball. So
it's true.
Yeah, it's just big issue there.
Brian Daboll's knows that every week he goes out there, he's interviewing to be Justin Fields' next coach. That's what it is, guys. He's showing what he can do with Justin Fields as his quarterback. He wants the Bears ownership to know that. At least that's what I've got in my head and my heart. Something that's not in my head or my heart, I think, is sticking with Courtland Sutton this week. Broncos are 2.5-point favorites against the Eagles, 45 the total in this game. Funston, can you make an argument for sticking with Courtland Sutton as a wide receiver 3?
Yeah, the argument is that maybe Tim Patrick doesn't play. That's the argument. I think he's dealing with a knee injury. Is that right, Jake? It's something, but it leaves him questionable. We've already talked about this earlier in the week. It's three pretty damning games when Patrick and Judy and Sutton have been on the field. I think Denver wants Courtland Sutton to be involved, and he's, maybe, you could argue, is he more talented than Judy? I think you can argue that he's more talented than Tim Patrick from a physical standpoint, and that they need to try to get him going a little bit. So I could see them maybe making an effort to do that, but really it comes down to if Tim Patrick's out, I could get pretty excited about Courtland Sutton regardless.
What about Jordan Howard? Oh, no, yeah, go ahead, Jake.
I was going to say, I'm giving Sutton one more chance here. Even with Tim Patrick, I'm not going to bury him. Like you said, 3 games is a very small sample.
Sure.
But, I definitely think that if you look at the opportunities, he's also out there for the most snaps still in those games with Tim Patrick and Jerry Jeudy. So I would give it one more before I moved on, but it's definitely looking worrisome. For Jordan Howard, I guess we have to do this. So earlier in the
week, you guys
week,
both have him at like RB30, I want to say.
That's the thing. So earlier in the week, I had him a little bit lower because I'm double checking where I have 28. It's not that far off. He's right there, still in that Alex Collins conversation. Needs a touchdown to have a big day.
It's right where we ranked Latavius Murray when he was healthy too. It's like it's touchdown or touchdown or
that's these guys. 40, 50 yards and hopefully a touchdown. Again, the only reason I feel a little bit better about it, what I was going to say is early in the week I had him lower is because for the past 2 games they had moved him to the practice squad and then he was out of the options. And they dropped him down, but he hadn't been signed to the roster yet. So there was a brief window where he was unprotected and could have gotten taken by another team. So I was like, ooh, do they not really care? But then they signed him, so that actually shows that they really do care. So Howard's the lead, and we're going to have to stick with Howard. Well, of course, when Miles Sanders comes back, it's just go stay away from everything back here.
Just get out of this backfield for sure. Let's get on to the Panthers and the Cardinals. We know what's going on with the Cardinals quarterback situation. The Panthers quarterback situation, however, is a little bit different. Moving on to PJ Walker. Jake, I say you're a little bullish on PJ Walker, if only because you've got him as a not top 20, but just outside the top 20 quarterbacks, whereas most people have him way down at the very bottom of their rankings. So what's the case? I mean, you technically have him as a starter in Superflex leagues, which only leaves out a few guys, but still, what's the case for PJ Walker maybe surprising us a little bit this week?
Garoppolo's facing the Rams. Goff is facing Pittsburgh.
So it's not PJ Walker.
Brissett stinks, and he's facing Baltimore. But also, look, PJ Walker had the one game, was it 2 years ago, where showed a little bit of flash. Obviously, we've seen also 2 really terrible games, including that same year. We've seen a bad game. I think he had 2 or 3 interceptions towards the end of the year. When he came in during the Giants game, the Giants they were in the backfield that entire game on top of it too. So I'm not going to forgive him 100%, but I'm not going to throw it all on P.J. Walker's shoulder. But also, yes, it's the XFL, but that's where Tyler Heineke came from. And P.J. Walker was looking better, no question about it, than Heineke in the XFL. P.J. Walker was in the MVP, XFL conversation, 2-3 touchdowns every single game. 3 rushes for 20 yards, 4 for 25, somewhere in that range. He hasn't really run in the NFL. So there's just some upside here. He's 22? That's really honestly, that's all it comes down to. Is I would take the gamble over Goff and Brissett and Simeon and all those junky quarterbacks.
On the other side,
there's at least the promise of some rushing yards. Really quickly, I did go back and look at all the plays from last year when he completed 32 passes last year. Only 2 went to Mike Davis, which was, I thought, kind of interesting out of 32 completions. So, you're going to be mandated to throw to Christian McCaffrey regardless.
Yes.
But I just wanted to bring that up.
Yeah, throw the ball to your best player, no matter what position he plays, is typically a very good idea when you're a quarterback. This game has the Cardinals favored by 10 and a total of 44.5, which gives us 27.25 implied points for the Cardinals. I know they put up 31 with Colt McCoy. That screams to me that odds makers are expecting Kyler Murray to play in this game. I think I feel comfortable waiting it out with this being a 4:05 Eastern kick.
I would still want to see Thursday's reports. No, Thursday sideline. Actually, as we're doing this, still sideline for today's practice.
They already have that? 9 in the morning Pacific time as we're recording this right now.
Rondell Moore sideline, Chase Edmonds sideline, DeAndre Hopkins sideline, Kyler Murray sideline.
They're all sidelined because practice hasn't started yet. That's
No, it's from Darren Urban, absent during the open part of practice. Murray, Hopkins, Edmonds, Moore, and a bunch of back guys.
And I think that this is a smaller line or an even lower total if odds makers feel like Kyler isn't playing. But we're going to have some more information on that.
Breaking news from our Joe Person.
Uh-oh.
Cam Newton signing with the Panthers.
He's signing?
Yep.
Is that true?
Signing with the Panthers. Yeah.
Can he be started this week?
Man. No way.
I mean, he could be, but I mean, I don't know if you're up and ready for it.
Okay.
Oh my God! Let's sound the alarm. Do we care about Cam Newton
with like 4 days to learn an offense versus PJ Walker? What do you
we care? Do we care about Cam for the rest of the season?
Yeah, honestly, yes. For fantasy purposes, as terrible as he was as a passer, he entered fantasy because he kept running. Still, he's running for touchdowns. He knows how to throw to Christian McCaffrey. He knows how to check down to running backs.
He knows how to throw to DJ Moore too.
Oh my God, look at that. Cam Newton back in our lives signing with the Panthers. One more game to touch on quickly here, guys. It is Steelers and Lions. Pretty obvious why this is the last game. Pat Friermuth, top 10 tight end the rest of the season, Funston?
You could twist my arm. I think he's right on that. He's right on that borderline. Looks great. He's getting volume. At least while Chase Claypool's out, you can feel even better about that volume. I know, and Jake, I saw you talking about it and saying the same thing. Even with Eric Ebron back, with no Claypool, you shouldn't have any concerns about Freiermuth and the targets volume. So, yeah, I think Ben Roethlisberger's really getting comfortable throwing him the ball, and especially down in the red zone. So, I would probably, if I'm ranking rest of the season, put him right at 10.
Yeah. This game, you guys, Steelers are favored by 8.5. It has a total of 42. So, look, we're starting out with the guys we're starting. Najee, DeAndre Swift, Deontay Johnson. I mean, obviously, like not only are we starting them, we're starting them with extreme confidence. But 8.5, 42. Jake, is there a chance that someone disappoints? One of these locked in, obvious guys? If someone's going to disappoint, who's it going to be?
DeAndre Swift. And real quick, to go back, you don't even have to twist my arm. I'd say Freiermuth is 8 going forward because I'm looking at the list right now. Kelsey, Andrews, Waller, Hawkinson, Gesicki, Schultz, and Pitts. That's it. He's over everybody else. It's like, maybe
me and Goddard.
I was gonna say you can say maybe. Well, then but the point being is like I would have been a little bit more hesitant if no Claypool, but now no Claypool definitely. And if again, not even twisting my arm. I love.
But Claypool's not out for the year.
No, but he's out for multiple weeks. He's week to week. So anyway, point being, and Ebron's toast at this point. But anyway, so the one that disappoints is potentially DeAndre Swift, just because if the game goes sideways with the Steelers defense, I don't think I would have said Jamal Williams, but nobody's really banking on him, and it might not even be Williams. Williams might not even be back, and it might be Jefferson again. Nobody's relying on any of the wide receivers for the Lions. Hawkinson has already kind of been a disappointment. So Deontay Johnson's going to smash like he has. Najee Harris going to smash. Freiermuth's fine. The only one that really comes down to is DeAndre Swift.
All right, guys, let's wrap up the show. You know what it is. Funston, I hope you're prepared this week. Jake, what's the Monday fantasy headline?
I thought you were going to Funston first.
Oh. No.
I was pulling mine up.
I knew he wasn't going to be prepared. I knew he was going to need an extra 30 seconds.
You knew he was going to need a second like that?
Yeah.
Well, fine. All right, fine. I was going to say that Marvin Jones and T.Y. Hilton are 2 of the top 20 wide receivers, and it's like a fallback day to 3 years ago. It's the good feeling. Because that's already including the fact that we care about Jordan Howard and Devonta Freeman. This is just 2017 is relevant again.
Yes, I love 2017. Great year. What do you got for us, Funston?
I got 2 potentials. One I'm kind of feeling is Russell Wilson is back, but should he be? And the other one is Kansas City still has issues, still forcing the ball to Tyreek and Kelsey. I think they lose. I think they lose to the Raiders. So I think that'll be a big discussion point as well.
Man, we should have let Jake go last year. Ended this on such a sour note, Funston.
All right. Well, Jake, why don't you just re-say what you said?
Make things a little bit happier to wrap things up on, because we do unfortunately have to wrap things up on this episode of the Athletic Fantasy Football Podcast. Thanks to everyone for being with us here. For Jake, for Funston, I am Michael Beller. Good luck in Week 10. If it starts for you tonight with Ravens and Dolphins, hopefully you get what you need. We're going to talk to y'all soon. See you later.